Hello and welcome to Ecocentric. I'm your host, Jake Slesky. We've got a lot of environmental news to cover for this week, so let's get started. Do you want to limit disease? Then you're going to want to limit climate change. Kissing bugs, known to transmit the deadly Chagas disease, are spreading north into more of the United States as the climate continues to warm. Chagas infection is rare outside Latin America, but its incidence in the southern United States is already significant. Kissing bugs were thought to live no further north than Virginia, but a bite in Delaware has healthcare professionals concerned by the potentially deadly infection the insect sometimes carries, maybe moving north with it. A similar trend has been observed with malaria and West Nile, two mosquito-borne diseases that have spread north in recent years. Chagas is often asymptomatic, but its potential to induce congestive heart failure years after infection has made it an object of hysteria and concern in the past. Kissing bugs are less subtle and effective vectors than mosquitoes, and their tendency to live around dense, degrading wood and brush limits Chagas infection to individuals under poor living conditions or living in rural areas. Unfortunately, these individuals are also the least likely to routinely receive thorough medical care, further feeding into the reputation of Chagas as a silent killer. Now we go to London. Extinction Rebellion has ended its London protest, but the group's action in the UK is far from over. After more than a week of protests and hundreds of arrests, Extinction Rebellion officially called an end to its highly publicized London protest on Thursday. Having seemingly exhausted their support and resources, the organization looked as if it would not be able to access such momentum again. Despite their heavy losses, Extinction Rebellion has defied expectations by engaging in civil disobedience and disruption once again in Newcastle. This action reveals a greater base of activists to the north who have been waiting to mobilize. Amazingly, nearly 1,000 arrests across the United States have done remarkably little to curb the group's ability to cause a scene and make headlines on a daily basis. Coupled with continued student and labor protests across Europe, Extinction Rebellion is proving to be a formidable force in the fight against climate change in action. So what happened with those protests? Well, a lot actually. In response to a protest in the UK, SNP and Labour are demanding the declaration of a climate change emergency. SNP leader and Scottish FM Nicola Sturgeon and Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn are determined to raise British environmental policies to a much higher standard. With its pledge to become carbon neutral by 2050, Scotland is already the UK member state most committed to tackling climate change. But Extinction Rebellion and student protests have made it clear that a meaningful and concrete plan needs to be adopted nationwide. First Minister Sturgeon is acting on these groups' demands, announcing today that as First Minister of Scotland, I'm declaring that there is a climate emergency, and Scotland will live up to our responsibility to tackle it. Corbyn, a particular object of the Extinction Rebellion's attention and the most powerful voice of the parliamentary left, has expressed his determination to champion Sturgeon's message to the British government. The Labour leader is also calling for a fracking ban and emission standards reflective of those already in place in Scotland. Labour will press Parliament for emissions cuts and declaration of national climate emergency on Wednesday. Sinn Féin and the SNP can be expected to get behind this initiative. Do you remember the CFCs, the chemicals that got the world to unite and stop the destruction of the ozone layer? Well, the fight isn't over. Properly disposing of old refrigerants will play a defining role in the fight against climate change. CFCs, a group of refrigerant chemicals, were the primary contributor to the destruction of the ozone layer prior to the prohibition under the Montreal Protocol in 1987. The act is now credited with the preservation of Earth's upper atmosphere, but improper disposal of CFCs around the world has continued to adversely affect the climate. CFCs can trap 11,000 times as much heat per molecule as CO2, making them a powerful greenhouse agent. Western nations have developed methods of safely containing and disposing of these chemicals, but developing nations have been unable to deal with their excess of refrigerants, allowing them to leak into the surrounding environment. Scientists in partnership with the nonprofit Drawdown came to the troubling conclusion that CFCs management is one of the leading contributing factors in climate change. However, dealing with these chemicals effectively will save the planet from leaks over the next few decades that will be comparable to more than 17 years of carbon emissions. Now we have a great story. Unfortunately, those seem to be less common nowadays. Renewable energy is expected to outpace coal in the United States this month for the first time ever. Coal use has been steadily declining in the United States, and renewable use has been increasing. While this is an excellent record, carbon-based energy still accounts for the vast majority of emission. Natural gas itself accounts for 38% of energy, and that has rapidly increased in recent years. Regardless, this is excellent for the future of renewable energy in this country. Now I get to say one of the coolest sentences I've ever said. Scientists can now turn AC units into climate change fighting machines. Air conditioning units are a particularly demanding consumer of electricity in the United States and around the world, with energy devoted to powering these units tripling in the past 3 decades. However, scientists can now repurpose these major contributors to climate change as carbon capturing machines. Atmospheric carbon can already be captured by units akin to air conditioning, so it is not far-fetched to imagine this as part of a dual functions of future ACs. Researchers at the KIT in Germany are taking this accepted process to the next level, envisioning a machine that converts captured carbon into clean-burning fuel upon which the unit can run. This technology is scientifically sound, but it has not left the stage of research and development. Consumers can expect a simple carbon filtering unit to be available long before this more sophisticated technology hits the market. And now, for our final story, which is one of the best all week. The Climate Action Now Act has passed the House. This bill would ensure the United States meets the goals of the Paris Climate Accords, namely 27% reduction in emissions by 2025. In the past few days, Congress has passed a historic climate bill. The UK has declared a climate emergency, and 2020 candidate Beto O'Rourke has released a plan for combating climate change. Action on climate change is rapidly increasing. This specific bill would block Trump from using federal funds to back out of the Paris Climate Accords, and would also require him to send a plan to Congress detailing how the United States will meet the goals of the Accords. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. You can also follow us on Instagram at @WeAreEcocentric, where we post daily about environmental news and education. Well, that's all for me, and that's your chance to save the world. See you next week.